me ask you this. Are we looking at emerging markets in the right way? Are we fully grasping and leveraging on the positive potential of disruption that is coming out of these places? Now, these are some of the questions that fascinates me, and that makes me think I potentially have the most beautiful and privileged job in the world. Now, as a technology entrepreneur over the last few years, I had the pleasure to live and visit several emerging economies, and to witness firsthand the magnitude of disruption, of innovation that is coming from them. And today, I would like to share with you some of my insights and propose to you a new, different way of looking at emerging markets. Now, when we think about emerging markets, oftentimes, me included, we tend to picture something like this, right? Meaning, of course, all of us, sooner or later in life, we do want to have a Nike shoes, a Gucci bag. And some of us even might be as lucky to have a Dolce Banana one, right? Anyway, and seriously, guys, tell me if you disagree with me. Sometimes we tend to picture something like this. I know I'm generalizing. But here that we tend to assume that these markets will never be like us. They will never catch up. And some of us even have the beautiful intent of helping, of contributing, of working hard for making these places better. And this is what I believe we should keep on doing, meaning helping if we can, because these countries still have lots of problems to solve, like from access to security, to access to sanitation, and so on and so on and so forth. And yet, in countries like India or Rwanda or else, like where still there are so many problems, when on one side of the street people are dying, it's on the other side of the street. The side of the street that is yet invisible to the most of us, that the real action is happening. It's in these same streets that lately thousands and thousands of newly born startups are building new local ways of solving global problems. Let me give you an example. Mobile payments. Mobile payments like M-Pesa in Kenya or Paytm in India or endless more is a technology innovation that is originated initially in emerging markets and now is being used and widespread at the global scale. Or may have already purchased one of the beautiful examples of low-cost innovations, like the $3,000 car, like the $30 smartphones, and so on and so forth. The pattern is clear. And what we're witnessing for the first time in life is something unexpected and unique happening. The classical flow of innovation of developed economies sending down innovation to the so-called developing economies is not holding much anymore. And it is actually reverting. Emerging markets are now creating and distributing solutions that are used and adopted at the global scale. The student is becoming the master and is taking little baby steps to leave a mark on this planet. Now, why? The reasons for this phenomenon are the most varied. And for the sake of this analysis today, I will try to compare, when possible, Italy with few major representative emerging economies. Allow me to start with demographic distribution. Age is tightly connected with economic development, and having a good chunk of the workforce, or the population within working age, is, as you might expect, a good thing, right? Now, this graph by the United Nations is one of my favorite graphs, as it clearly shows the demographic distribution across countries. Here we're comparing Italy and India. Look at the staggering difference, guys. In Italy, we start with very few children, then the population keeps becoming older and older and older and older, then peaks the trendy age in between 45 and 60 years old, and then it shrinks as people die off. India, instead, as pretty much every other emerging economy, goes exactly the opposite. Very few people on top, some people in the middle, a lot of people in the young section. The average age in India is 27 years old, which is the perfect time for being in the workforce, actually in the productive section of the workforce. Definitely a source of competitive advantage, isn't it? Similar considerations apply also for a rising middle class and for an average education level. Middle class is increasing at a global scale at an unprecedented speed. And over the next few years, middle class is expected to reach 4 billion people, making it, for the first time in history, the majority of the world population. Now, most of this growth is driven by emerging economies, with India and China contributing for around 65% of total growth, or an equivalent of just about a little bit more than 700 million people. Now, in these economies, the middle class is entering the so-called sweet spot, which is defined as the moment where people leave poverty and enter the middle class by their millions. India is expected to hit the sweet spot in 2017. Indonesia in 2019, Nigeria in 2025. Guys, this is happening. Not tomorrow, but essentially today. And over the next decades, emerging markets will become the powerhouse of consumerism. And their impressive spending power will likely translate into the rise of a global citizen. In these economies, they will likely hit the so-called middle class effect, according to which the size of the middle class is directly proportional to economic growth. Hitting the sweet spot accelerates economic growth, which in turn increases the size of the middle class, which in turn accelerates economic growth, and so on and so forth, hence producing a virtuous circle. Education is also improving dramatically pretty much everywhere on the planet. And we are looking into a future of negligible illiteracy rates, with this transformation mainly caused and facilitated by the rise of the smartphone as a technology, necessarily. Now, please look at this map. This is the world, and these are emerging markets 40 years ago. Blue means education, red means no education. Necessarily, it's easy to see that Africa and India have some problems, right? With serious problems in terms of low education levels. Now, these instead are emerging markets today, the same country. Look, even in the most remote of the areas, how much blue there is. Blue is the color of the future. Blue is how the future will look like. On a government standpoint, similar consideration apply. With countries like India and Rwanda leading the change through e-government innovation and pushing like never before for the rise of a digital and a cashless economy. Now, think of India for just 1 second. India, up until a few years ago only, had a massive problem of identification, with pretty much no one at the national level owning an identification card. India today, instead, has the world's largest and most sophisticated biometric ID system on the planet, as defined in these exact words by the chief economist of the World Bank, Paul Romer. Can you imagine? From nearly 0 to 1.1 billion people in just about 5 years. Massive, no? Now, these and other considerations help us to easily explain why, in recent years, the vast majority of the world's most valuable companies on the planet, the so-called unicorns, are not coming anymore from the developed world. They're instead coming from emerging markets. This is the new world order, and this is the order that we need to understand. So, now that we know this is real, I believe there is one question that we really need to ask ourselves as soon as possible. What is next? Two things. First, we need to rethink innovation in an emerging market-ready way, where essentially innovation is not made anymore of few big, major, disruptive changes, but it's made of a lot of small improvements, usually low-cost oriented and focused on volumes. In this new world, only products that bring real value to the user and that solve a real need will actually succeed. And second, we need to acknowledge and we need to embrace this change. In my company, Seemba, we took this to the heart, literally, and we are betting our company life on it. We want to be the enabler of this uprising, educated middle class in emerging markets. At Seemba, we power hundreds of thousands of low-income, small business owners in countries like Africa, in continents like Africa, India, or Latin America, to come online for the first time in their lives, to manage their businesses, and to ultimately increase their revenues. And we consider ourselves extremely lucky, because by the way of doing business, we're actually improving the local society, which in turn wants to make this impact even bigger, and therefore decide to help us back. It's astonishing for me to see and understand that in these economies, people really care. And therefore, we could not be more proud of the plenty of local and national governments or the partner organizations that are supporting our work, or of the hundreds and hundreds of students, like this one, for instance, that literally, as we speak today, are browsing the streets of cities like Mumbai and Pune, literally knocking on the door of every business owner to teach him the value of technology and to help him go online for the first time in their lives. We are extremely proud about this, and this brings to the last point. Working alongside emerging markets is proving to be one of the most fulfilling and beautiful experiences of my life. And with the world changing at an unprecedented speed, I believe that we need to rethink our misconceptions about emerging markets. People who used to think of the emerging world only as a source of cheap labor must now understand that emerging countries can also be a source of disruptive innovation as well. I believe that this innovation flow is already reversed, and this process is actually accelerating. And I deeply believe that we might be on the edge of a global shift. And that potentially, over the next few years, Europe and the United States might find themselves in the situation of being considered as the new developing economies. So, in light of this, let me ask you again. Are you looking at emerging markets in the right way? Thank you.